Lepelle Northern Water Board primarily provides bulk water services to water service institutions and industries in the Mopani, Sekukuni, Capricorn and Mogalakwena municipalities. At Lepelle Northern Water, we are committed to ensuring employees, visitors and contractors are safe and protected from hazards during their time at our plants through the implementation of health, safety and environmental or HSE rules and regulations, which we have formulated in accordance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the National Environmental Management Act and other applicable legislation and standards. We are also committed to keeping our natural and working environment safe and free from pollution and degradation, and have put preventative and control measures into practice to ensure we preserve our environment and keep our employees, contractors and visitors safe at the same time. We ask that you pay careful attention during this safety induction presentation and help us to create a safe and happy work environment. As a contractor on a Lepelle Northern Water site, we ask that you pay careful attention during this presentation in order to help us to create a safe and happy work environment. Contractors must sign in to the premises on arrival. All contractors should have signed a Principal Contractors Agreement and the 37.2 Agreement. Contractors must supply their own PPE and PPC as well as a complete safety plan and file before beginning any work at Lepelle Northern Water. The safety file must be on site at all times and must contain all the relevant documents. Appointments must be signed and detail the responsibilities for the appointees before handing the HSE file to HSE coordinators. Progress meetings should be held at regular intervals, for example monthly or every 2 weeks, as determined by Lepelle Northern Water and the contractor. Registers must be completed as required, for example every time before use, or daily, weekly or monthly, failing which the contractor is not following safety standards and the project can be stopped until the non-conformances are corrected. The HSE coordinators will conduct inspections on a regular basis to ensure contractor compliance to the HSE plan. Non-compliance will lead to the project being stopped until the deviation has been rectified. There are 6 golden HSE rules at Lepelle Northern Water that should be obeyed at all times. The first rule is to ensure the safety and health of yourselves and that of others. All incidents and near misses must be reported immediately. Housekeeping standards must be kept at a high level. Always prevent environmental pollution. No one is allowed to be on a Lepelle Northern Water site while under the influence of alcohol or illegal substances. If you are taking medication that makes you drowsy, you must inform your supervisor at the beginning of your shift. This is especially important if you are operating a vehicle or machine that requires your full attention and concentration. And number 6, always ensure that you are wearing the correct personal protective clothing for the task. While on site, you will notice signs that will help you to keep the workplace safe. These signs are divided into 5 groups. Mandatory signs show something that must be complied with, such as what personal protective equipment should be worn while performing a work task. Prohibitory signs show actions that are not permitted, such as no unauthorized entry to a hazardous area. Fire equipment signs indicate where fire extinguishers are situated. Information signs show evacuation directions and where first aid stations are found. Warning signs can be yellow and black triangular signs or square orange signs. These warn against hazards such as live electricity and dangerous substances. Workshops, stores and other areas are marked to indicate which areas are for storage, for work areas, walkways and areas where goods may not be stored. These demarcation rules must be adhered to at all times. Personal protective equipment and clothing, or PPE and PPC, is supplied to ensure a person is protected from hazards and injuries to their eyesight, hearing, lungs, etc. while performing their work. Apart from the obvious, like steel cap safety boots protecting you from physical injury, or eye protection to protect you from foreign objects injuring your eyes, Other PPE and PPC is employed to protect you from the less obvious impacts of working at Lepelle. For example, ear protection protects you from irreparable noise-induced hearing loss, which can occur in as short a time as 15 minutes when exposed to levels that are more than 85 decibels. When on site at a Lepelle plant, ops and maintenance employees must be wearing safety boots or shoes with a steel-toe cap and overalls with a work shirt underneath the overall jacket. Employees working in the laboratory and control room should always wear an acid-resistant lab coat. For lung protection, wear the relevant respirators, masks or a BA set if there is a possibility of overexposure to chemicals and fumes. Remember that some specific jobs require special PPE and PPC. Always be aware of the mandatory signage showing you what the required PPE and PPC is for the job you are performing before you start the job. Some of it is highly specialized and essential to your well-being. Employees, visitors and contractors must report any hazard, unsafe behavior and persons working without authority to the superintendent of the plant. Always be on the lookout for signage that is there to show you what PPE and PPC is required in order for you to perform your task safely and effectively. Contractors are obliged to keep their work areas neat and tidy and free of hazards. Keeping your workspace organized, clean and unobstructed is the best way to reduce risk. Store items safely on shelves, ensuring the heaviest items are on the lowest shelves. There should be no items protruding into the walkways. Walkways and stairs, especially emergency routes and exits, must always be clean and dry without obstruction and should always be free of oil and other slippery substances. Always check tools for damage before and after use and make sure that they are clean before you pack them away. Employees using portable electrical equipment and machinery must be qualified to do so. Homemade or makeshift tools can be hazardous and are not allowed on Lepelle Northern Water sites. If you are lifting heavy objects, always plan the lift. Make sure that you bend your knees and not your back, and that if the object is too heavy or too awkward to move for one person, that you have the required assistance in order to move it safely. Even while in the offices at a Lepelle plant or site, there are potential dangers and hazards that you should watch out for. While working at a Lepelle site, wear the appropriate clothing for the day, remembering that you may be required to leave the office and enter work areas from time to time, even if you are just walking through the site to reach or leave the office area. Always keep your office space neat, uncluttered and clear of obstructions, especially emergency exits and pathways. Make sure that your work area is comfortable and that your desk and chair are correctly set up so that you are not negatively affected by your day-to-day tasks. To avoid eye strain while using laptops and computers, ensure the computer is not reflecting light from the overhead lighting or the window. Turn your screen to avoid glare. Allow your eyes to stretch, looking at a distance every 20 minutes. Ensure the top of the computer screen is level with your eyebrows to prevent neck and back strain that happens if you look down at the screen for too long. Comply with all the rules and regulations of the road while on and off Lepelle Northern Water sites. Keep to the speed limits and be aware of possible dangers on the roads such as cows and goats. No people are allowed on the back of buckies or trucks. Don't use your cell phone while driving. Always wear seat belts even while driving around the plant. Stick to the road speed limit. Drive with your lights on in misty weather, not so that you can see, but rather so you can be seen by other road users. Hazardous chemical substances can cause physical harm or have a negative effect on your health. Always ensure that the proper PPE and PPC are worn to protect you from potential hazardous substances. In order to protect your skin, such as from lime and other chemicals, wear gloves and wear goggles to avoid contact with sensitive sinuses and tear ducts. When working with any chemical, you must familiarize yourself with the material safety data sheet for that chemical. The material safety data sheets have details on each hazardous chemical substance that you might find at the workplace, and will include first aid procedures as well as storage and handling instructions to ensure your safety. Hazardous chemical substances should only be stored in an area that has been designated for this purpose. These areas should be bunded and well ventilated and also have access control. If you are working with hazardous chemical substances, do not pour them into unlabeled containers. Always ensure that you and others know what is inside all containers on site. When we talk about biological hazardous substances, we are referring mainly to the live biological cultures present in sewerage. Employees that work in or near sewerage manholes, with sewage samples, for instance in laboratories, and in sludge management should ensure that they are wearing the appropriate PPE and PPC at all times, and should also ensure that safe work procedures are always followed. Wash your hands after handling these substances. If you need to work on the pipeline, make sure that you avoid heat stroke and dehydration by drinking water every 15 minutes, particularly in summer. Make sure that you have checked in the manholes and around the work area for snakes and other hazards. Only employees trained to remove snakes may do so. Do not attempt to handle the snake if you have not been trained by a professional. Inspect ladders before and after use for defects. Make sure that the ladder is stable and correctly anchored, and if you need to use an extension ladder, make sure that the ladder is secured against something solid. Always use both hands to climb the ladder and make sure that the ladder is the correct length for the job. If you need to lift heavy objects, take careful note that you use the correct crane for the job you are performing. Taking note of the weight of the object being lifted, make sure that the beam, chain block and any motorized cranes that you might be using will support what you are lifting. Plan the lift and make sure you are in control at all times. Powered cranes should only be used by people who are trained to do so. Follow the safe work procedures when handling chlorine cylinders. Wear the appropriate PPE and ensure you have a buddy outside who can assist you with the relevant PPE in case of an emergency. Be aware of the location of the eye bath. If welding, make sure that you are wearing the proper welding helmet and gloves, and make sure that there is an extraction fan and that it is working effectively. Emergency contact numbers and procedures are found on notice boards around Lepelle plants. Take special note of where first aid stations are situated. Fire and emergency drills are conducted from time to time to ensure personnel know what is expected of them during a real crisis. When on a scheme, expect this procedure. During a drill or in an emergency, visitors must be shown to the correct assembly point. When at head office, expect this procedure. When evacuating, employees should use emergency fire doors and not the main stairwell, as this will cause congestion at the exit turnstile. Anyone injured or incapacitated should be evacuated using the evacuation chairs. Evacuate quickly to the assembly point via the emergency fire doors and stairwells. Ensure that your visitors are shown to the correct assembly point. Stand quietly in groups according to the floor you are based on and sign the attendance register. Only return to your workstation if the building has been declared safe. One of the emergency procedures that is practiced is confined space rescue. Specialized equipment and training is required to safely extract a person from a confined space. Contractors must have a first aid kit as well as a first aider. Serious incidents are handled as per the signed-off safety plan, but serious incidents must be reported to the superintendent within 12 hours of the incident. Employees, visitors and contractors must work safely to make sure they don't contract an occupational disease or illness. Wear gloves and other PPE when dealing with biological substances and chemicals, and be careful to avoid any body fluids if you have to administer first aid. At Lepelle, we subscribe to the 2007 ISO 14001 standard for environmental protection, and as such, are committed to keeping our natural and working environment safe and free from pollution and degradation, and have put preventative and control measures into practice to ensure we preserve our environment and keep our employees, contractors and visitors safe at the same time. Contractors working at a Lepelle Northern Water site must have their own waste management plan as per their signed-off safety plan. Waste must be disposed of properly. Hazardous waste must go to a credible landfill site that can issue a certificate of compliance. Contractors must plan ahead and bring their own spill kits to Lepelle Northern Water sites to assist with the cleanup of spilt chemicals, oil, petrol and diesel. No open fires are permitted at all Lepelle Northern Water sites between 1st of August and 31st of October. This time of the year poses a threat of uncontrolled veld fires. Fire breaks at all Lepelle Northern Water plants must be completed before the end of July. At Lepelle Northern Water, we have implemented a resource conservation program in order to conserve energy and save resources wherever we can. As such, energy-saving light bulbs should be used where possible. Geysers must be covered with insulating blankets. Lights should be turned off if the natural light is sufficient to work comfortably. Air conditioners and heaters should be turned off when leaving the work area, and sufficient ventilation must be accounted for, especially when using heaters. Leaking taps should be reported and repaired as soon as possible. The poaching of animals at Lepelle Northern Water plants is forbidden. The removal of indigenous plants is not allowed unless absolutely necessary, and alien vegetation should be controlled where possible. At Lepelle Northern Water Board, we approach safety, health and our environment holistically. But your safety is our top priority. An unsafe workplace is a thing of the past. We pay careful attention to those aspects that make your workplace a safe place. Thank you for paying attention during this video presentation and for helping to make Lepelle Northern Water plants a safe environment for all.